Good evening. It's Tuesday, August 26th, 7:30 p.m. I'd like to call this special meeting of the Board of Finance to order. First item on the agenda, as always, is public comment. Seeing there's no one here in the public to make comment, we'll move on to the first orders of business. We have 15 transfers that we need to discuss and approve tonight. 14 of which are related to fiscal year 2025, and one of which is related to fiscal year 2026. Given that Captain Mastrioni is here tonight from our police department, we're going to go through and process transfer number 15, which is the 2026 fiscal year transfer, and then number 5, which is a fiscal year 25 transfer, both related to the police department.
No, that doesn't line up with your agenda.
15 is 13,000 from FY26.
No. Yeah. We have 18 on here.
Hold on 1 second.
Oh, sorry. This is the regular meeting.
Right.
Let me see this. The special one.
I'm
Okay,
looking at the original one, and it says 15.
Yeah, I take that back. There's a couple other transfers on
There
there.
may be a couple.
So if you look at the one that was posted
there were
online,
a couple of
there are 18 different transfers.
So the
Sorry.
agenda we're working with is not the one that was circulated, it's the one that's online.
It's the one that was posted online.
So there are 18 different transfers. Number 18 is a fiscal 26 related to the police department, and number
Right. Number 18.
13 is a fiscal year 25 that's related to the police department.
Correct.
Okay,
Sorry
so
about
let's
that.
go through the fiscal 26 first, which is discuss and take action on a request to transfer 13,000 to the police professional services training and testing.
All right, thank you. Good evening. We had a lieutenant unexpectedly retire this past May after 20 years of service, and the Police Commission has approved to fill that vacancy. Contractually, a promotional process is required to fill that position. We want to remain consistent what we did last year with our sergeant vacancy. We want to use BadgeQuest again as our examination vendor. As you could see in the proposal, they're a very reputable consulting firm. They have serviced a number of fire and police agencies throughout Massachusetts and Connecticut, and we've been using them since 2014. The issue I have is that this lieutenant vacancy was not projected for this fiscal year, so I am just looking to transfer some funds from our patrol full-time salary accounts, because we do have some vacancies going on right now, into our professional services account to cover the examination fee of approximately $13,000.
I take it this amount is comparable to what we paid in the past?
Yes.
For the
It's
similar
a little
training
bit
testing?
cheaper than the sergeant's exam, but yes, it's very
Okay.
consistent.
How many we short now?
Yeah, I was gonna cover all that in the next one,
Keep
but
going. No, that's fine, keep going.
I got a whole breakdown
Yeah,
for you.
that's fine. I figured that, jumping the gun, sorry.
And just keep in mind that this exam will be good for 2 years, so I wouldn't have to worry about it for fiscal '27.
Any questions on this?
None.
Okay, so I'll accept the motion to approve transfer of 13,000 from the police patrol full-time salary into the police administration and professional services line item, again for fiscal 26. Paul moves, Rob seconds. All those in favor? It's unanimous. Thank you. So the other item is captains related to fiscal 25, which is discuss and take action on a transfer of $137,103 to the police department's overtime account from its full-time salary accounts.
All right, so we had an increase in overtime spending last fiscal year, and it's mainly because of staffing shortages we experienced both in patrol and our communications. To give you an idea, some of the staffing shortages we experienced, we had 2 officers that resigned July and August. We had 2 officers that retired September and May. We had 1 officer who was out on IOD for the entire fiscal year, and we had 3 dispatchers that resigned. 2 were trainees and 1 was a 4-year veteran. There's some other contributing factors that led to some of the spending. There's officers out on sick leave, FMLA, vacation, and some other officers that were out on injury. We are putting our best foot forward, and we're trying to hire officers and dispatchers, and it's been an ongoing challenge for us, but we are currently doing that right now. We have 6 dispatcher candidates. They've successfully passed both the interview process and the written process. We're moving too along into the background process, which is a very good sign. We did hire a couple officers last fiscal year. We have one currently in the Stanford Police Academy, and we have another in the FTO phase of training, which is basically the last phase. So we are making progress. Despite these ongoing recruitment efforts, we are down 3 officers right now out of our 53 authorized positions, and we are down 3 dispatchers out of our 9 authorized positions. We're very optimistic, though, in the coming weeks and months, we'll be hiring more officers and dispatchers. So these vacancies have led to unspent full-time salaries, both on our patrol and communications account. So I'm looking to take funding from there and transferring it over to the overtime accounts in patrol and communications to cover those deficits.
Now, the dispatchers, what's kind of driving that? Is there anything in specific? Because I know, like, I worked on the latest contract, and I thought it was pretty fair. And
Yeah, and so that's something that's fairly new right now. So I think this is the first round of hiring we're doing with that new contract. So I think it's definitely more appealing. It's, if I had to guess, I mean, some people use it as a stepping stone to start another career somewhere else, a firefighter or a police officer. It's challenging because it's a small group of people, so there's really not room for growth opportunities and stuff like that. But like I said, we are making progress, and we are optimistic that we are going to get more dispatchers.
Yeah, Captain, one thing I'd asked at the last budget, during the last budget cycle, I'd like to maybe see ahead of presenting the upcoming budget in January and February is, you know, there's always a lot of turnover we're dealing with, and we're budgeting for a certain number of full-time officers, but we always know between, you know, whether it be deployment, injury, turnover, training, we're never sort of at that. So what I think would be very helpful is if you all could track, not, you know, in a way that you think is convenient and not disruptive to your operations, but to see, like, each month, like if we're assuming we budgeted for 53 officers, on any given month, how many officers were actually, you can count them or determine the number however you want, but kind of full-time equivalent, did we have actually in during that month? How many might have been on injured leave? How many might have been, not injured leave, or, you know, out on disability, and how many may have been in training, and how many are just unfilled? I think that would be helpful to maybe look at throughout the year, just so we can understand, and how many are maybe deployed into the SRO function. But I think to understand sort of what we've actually been operating at on average, I think would be helpful.
I mean, the issue is, I mean, we could have officers out on a number of reasons, but they're still being paid their salaries.
Yep.
So we still have to budget for our full strength every year. So I'll do my best in doing that. I do have some numbers, though, if you would like to know, as far as some of the officers that been out between sick leave and FMLA. I mean, we're looking at about almost 1,900 hours. It's difficult to break it down per month. It's easier to do it kind of, you know, maybe 6 months or a fiscal year. But I do have a breakdown with certain officer leaves in hours, but it's during the fiscal year. I'll see if I can get a monthly breakdown for you.
Yeah, I mean, we don't want to create additional work, but I think the, you know, officers that are out or on family leave or sick leave, that sort of is part of what drives overtime. And then those positions that we think unexpectedly may have become vacant and we haven't filled, sort of just, that's another part that drives overtime. So I think just thinking like direction, like maybe if you want to look at it by hours, how that varies You know,
Okay.
whether you want to look at quarterly, semi-annually, or every year, I think that would be helpful for me.
Okay. I'll work on that.
We don't have software that tracks that, do we? I sworn at one point. I thought
We actually do. One of our lieutenants is very, very well versed in that,
Yeah.
so
I might be able to spit
I'll be
that out.
reaching out to
Yeah.
him. Yeah.
Super.
We have automated scheduling and
Yeah.
telestat systems, so
Yep.
we can
Yeah,
get some
I'm- I
stats
think I'm
off
under
that.
that. Yep. Perfect. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And these transfers to the overtime, this doesn't count anything, I don't believe, Josh, like when officers earn overtime for, when private enterprises need them for construction projects,
No,
that doesn't necessarily
No,
flow
that's
through
out-
these.
that's out.
Right, okay,
Nothing to do with our operating budget at all.
okay,
Or the private duty, or.
perfect, okay. Any questions? Okay. I'll tell you, we will vote on this transfer, and then Josh, if it's okay, we'll go through the other, I think, 16 transfers, and we'll do those as one fell
Yep.
swoop.
Sounds good.
Okay, so I'll accept the motion to transfer. Hold on one second here.
Here, 13.
I know.
137, 103.
137, 103.
It's 137.
103.
Okay, we're from these two different accounts. So do we need to have our motion be the two separate transfers that they're coming out of, and
No,
the two
just,
separate that they're going into?
I don't think you need to be that specific, probably just.
Okay. So we will,
As presented.
okay, I entertain a motion to transfer $137,103 from the communications full-time salary and the patrol full-time salary into the communications overtime and the patrol overtime in a like amount. Rob moves, Malen seconds. All those in favor? Unanimous. Thank you very much for coming out. Really
Thank you very much.
appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
it.
Have a good night.
Thanks.
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 Okay, so the rest of these we'll go through, and, you know, from the top, 1 through 18, and skip 13 and 18, and we'll pass them all as one motion, if that's okay.
Sounds good.
Okay.
So, kind of one of the common themes in these, like I said earlier, was, there's obviously kind of unexpected maintenances that take place on buildings, but especially also on vehicles and so on. And those kind of, I think, as we've seen, have taken kind of have had a greater cost in the past couple years, just vehicle maintenance and repairs in general. So those kind of are a lot of where these transfers are heading to. So starting at the Darien Fire Department, they are requesting a transfer from the Board of Finance contingency of $35,885 into their equipment repair and maintenance line, as well as their facility repair and maintenance line. And they kind of outline in the transfer request what exactly that is covering, and that's about 22,000 repairs to their engines 41 and 42, as well as an unexpected breakdown of their building AC unit and testing for their elevator, as well as some unanticipated plumbing challenges that they had in their building. And should I just keep going through and you can stop if you have
Any
questions?
questions on this transfer?
Okay.
No.
On to kind of the DPW grouping. A lot of them are just moving funds between other DPW accounts with one kind of ask from Board of Finance contingency. So this one is a transfer of $24,771 coming from three accounts: traffic marking services, professional services, facility repair and maintenance, going to electricity. There are some issues with the HVAC units on the town hall, and I think that's kind of in the out years of the capital budget that's coming up for DPW. And one of the things that's causing is kind of a difficulty in kind of slowing down the system to accommodate lesser need within the building, and so that creates kind of more need for electricity within the building itself. And so this is kind of a slight overage, not so slight. There are some kind of unexpectedly high usages outside of that, but that's kind of the main driver behind this one.
This one is just town hall, right? Because there was some transfers from
I
electricity.
believe this
and,
one is just town hall.
Right.
correct.
So when we move this money out of these operating accounts that have surpluses, that is an unexpected reduction in the operating surplus that we had contributed at the end of the year that we were discussing during the budget process. So this 25,000, that was, I was assuming that 25,000 was in the expected operating surplus that was going to go into the general account.
I don't know if that was the case. One of the problems is probably that, there were some HVAC issues. I mean, yes, it was probably built into those projections because, as the summer months actually ramped up, which is after the budget really had already been passed, I think some of the HVAC issues had been identified or kind of came to light. If you were here in Town Hall for a few days around early summer, there were fans blowing air, just giant jet fans across all of the hallways because the AC units were out on one side of the building. So I think that's kind of something that probably was unexpected to take place. But for the most part, within DPW, there were accounts to cover some of those overages.
Maybe a thing for like next year, when we set the budget, it might be helpful to just, when we sort of look at it in time in mid-April and we pass it, here's what all the surpluses and deficits were across the accounts, and then today when we're closing them out a couple months later, just to see
Sure.
if there are any big movements.
Yeah, I mean, if it went from just hypothetically a $1.6 million operating surplus to a 1.575, because it 25,000 went in, this is good to know. Doesn't really impact anything, and there's nothing we can do about it, it's just good to know.
No, I think it's good when we kind of get our final round of year-end financials to kind of have a proper look back at where we thought we would end up. All right, so moving on within DPW, this is 28,862 of transfers from paving services, heating fuel within two accounts, two departments, and traffic marking services to the motorized equipment repair and maintenance. So there have been a few instances of DPW vehicles that have needed kind of unexpected maintenance. I was talking to Ed about it this morning. And it's one of those things where the prices on the parts themselves, as well as the lead time, has kind of skyrocketed this and last year, really ever since COVID took place. And this is kind of moving some of that money back into, I believe that's the Roads Highway Department, to cover some of those costs. On to $7,512 transfer, also within DPWs, from facility repair maintenance, radio repair maintenance, ice controlled materials, and operating supplies to the facility repair maintenance account within the DPW garage. There were a couple unexpected repairs, namely the repair of the roof over East Bays, as well as I think it was a repair of the fire hydrant that's on site, and so that kind of pushed the accounts over by about $7,500, and this is covering that. On to number 5, I believe, also within DPW. This is a transfer of $30,356 from motor fuel lubricants and paving services to the professional services account. despite the name of the account, professional services, this is actually where we're booking the transaction fees for municipal solid waste and transfer station kind of credit card charges.
I thought it was waste management,
Waste management, what did I say?
professional services?
It's within the waste management budget
Oh.
to the professional services line. So we've kind of seen the trend of MSW expenses and revenues both being up this year, and this is kind of just another arm of the expenditure side being up as well.
Hey, Josh, maybe just want to ask right here,
Yep.
I appreciate when we, there's 2 or 3 different transfers out, for example, that on different line items that are coming from motor fuel
Sure.
and lubricants, like 83004 into others. And on other ones, there's a couple different ones coming out of Board of Finance contingency going into others.
Okay.
I think what might be sort of helpful here, as we think about this for next year, again, just always looking to improve, is if we had a list of, this is everything that's coming out of one account, and this is everything that's coming into one account, because on some of these, we're taking, they're different transfers, we're taking money out of the same account
Yeah.
and moving to others. So I think it might just be helpful to see for totality of everything we're taking out of one account, or a totality of everything we're putting into one account, to see a,
Can try to do that. I think, Ed, who is dealing with, 5 or 6 departments'
Yep.
budgets at once, it's tricky because I think he tries to kind of keep each transfer as, like, this has one cause that is the transfer, and despite, he's probably taking from the same accounts that have surpluses several times, I can probably put together something like that, especially when we I think at some point we review transfers as a whole that take place, even administrative transfers. And, there may be a way to show kind of how that money flows between accounts.
because there's a lot coming out of like motor fuels and
Yeah.
fuel and lubricants, not to pick on that, but
Yeah.
what I would just say, like if this was in a spreadsheet, I would say just put together a pivot table. This is what is coming out of each account, and this is what's going into each account.
Sure.
Just so that we can see like in total how much is coming out.
Sure.
Because a few of these are,
Sure. I'd have to check if the financials have information like that, but if not, there should be something on there that takes care of that.
okay.
But-
Does that make sense?
100%.
So, on to another one that's taking a little bit out of motor fuel and lubricants, a DPW transfer, and this is kind of their major transfer, pushing a lot of their available budget into the solid municipal waste. So this is a $220,785 transfer. $65,929 of which is coming from Board of Finance contingency. The rest are coming from full-time salary lines, tree maintenance, overtime salary lines, and there's a different electricity line that's being used here that's moving to, and motor and fuel lubricants. So this is kind of the one that we've been expecting for a while now. I think there has been kind of a massive uptick in the MSW that have been brought to the transfer station. It's at about 10% from private haulers. On the upside, the revenue has gone up about $475,000 from what was budgeted. So that kind of offsets some of the increase, but I'm not sure if it's necessarily run on a profit basis, so it really just kind of brings it in line with the expenditures. And I know Ed is kind of taking a look at the fee structure right now of how that's going, and it's one of those things that determining the fee around those is difficult because haulers could just bring their trash somewhere else without any really notice. So that could just kind of remove a source of income.
But if the totality of our expenses only related to the service, I think the third-party services are up by 220, but our revenue's up by 475.
Yeah.
Well,
On a net,
Over budget line.
this is, right.
Under budget and, or over budget on the expense line and over budget on the revenue line.
Well, there's also the, I think, 30,000 or so in processing fees that were higher than expected. And this is only, there may have been mid-year transfers that I am not aware of, that took place that tried to cover some of it, but this is kind of the final ask. There are some surpluses, or were some surpluses in those full-time salaries because of 2 partially vacant positions, some lower cost of maintenance, fewer storms that used overtime, kind of lower fuel costs that kind of brought those savings, those surpluses in those accounts. So that's probably one of the bigger transfers of the night.
What's the difference between the 365 and the 475 that are referenced in the notes?
Yeah, I saw that too.
I don't know if this is right, but the way I looked at it was the 10% increase resulted in 365,
Right.
but the total budget was actually up 475.
So if we,
See what I'm saying? Part of it would be a
Correct.
fee increase, and the
Quick.
rest of it might
Yep.
be a volume increase.
Yep.
so it was 365 overall as a positive, a surplus in revenues.
No, no, what the 475 is.
Yeah, I don't know what the 475 is referencing.
it sounds like the 10% is 365, and,
The total is 475.
maybe just ask that, if you could just ask Ed to clarify that, should be note.
All right, on to second to last DPW, is transferring $16,197 to the overtime salary line from snow removal services, street light maintenance, software maintenance support, facility repair and maintenance. There were 2 custodians that were absent towards the end of the fiscal year, and this 16,000 and change transfer is kind of covering those absences from the surpluses that took place from fewer snowstorms and lower number of street light repairs and so on. And the final DPW transfer is $18,787 being transferred to the facility repair and maintenance account. And this is addressing directly the AC units that are on the town hall.
So I have a question. It's overdrawn by 18,537, but we're transferring more.
On the updated, the agenda or the packet that's on the website,
This
it
is
should
what
be,
I'm on the website.
should be 18,787 should be the amount that's on there.
Yeah. That's it.
I'm looking at the available balance, says minus 18,537. But maybe I'm on an old one, but I thought I'm on the website.
Yeah, I think, Josh, this is one with the 18,757, the total didn't update from the total above.
18, oh, okay. The one I have, but I do see that. So it is 18,757. There was like a last minute expenditure by Ed, which corrected the totals, but must have missed that one.
Okay.
For some reason, the
Number 3 was
number I
also
have-
like that. There was a difference in that.
There were a couple of last minute
Okay.
expenditures in the accounts that we were covering. We've since stopped most spending in FY '25.
So just to be clear, the totals are
The
correct?
totals are correct, 18,787.
Got it.
All right. So on to kind of another one that we had been anticipating. This is a transfer request in the legal counsel department for $180,345. This is transferring money from regulatory council P&Z, labor council, and also $143,194 to the town council, kind of general town council budget line. So we've kind of seen this ticking up as the year has gone by. In the transfer notes, there's kind of an outline of some of the larger matters that have been taking place over the year. Tax appeals were about $184,000. Pedestrian easement case was $125-ish thousand, and tree appeals almost $80,000 and change. And there's also blight and foreclosures about $55,000.
Is the tree appeals exclusively for Great
I
Island?
believe so. Yeah.
We should publicize that. This is a cost to the town that could have been avoided. Just
I think that was,
rub these people's noses in it.
Paul, there are other appeals. I think the Great Island ones are included in the Great Island budget. We should confirm. I think there was some other on Nearwater.
There was one on the Post Road, I think.
And I think there's some on Nearwater. But I mean, it was, Paul, to your point, I can tell you the amount of money that the town had to spend for the tree appeals on Great Island was significant.
Well, we should list the names of the people that appealed and what they cost the town.
Josh, do you have any more color on the pedestrian easement case?
That one I'd have to look into. That's not one that I'm familiar with.
Yeah, can you let me know what that is?
Sure.
And on the tax appeals, I would expect that to go down, right? It was a reval year. So everybody appealed last year, so I would expect that to go down. It's a pretty decent amount. Right, because we're doing a reval for another 4 years, right? Are you off base thinking of that way?
No, it seems right.
Because that was a big, when you look at the miss, it was almost, if you just exclusively kind of think about the tax appeals, it was almost all that.
Yeah.
All right, so another one that was kind of expected. This is a transfer of $35,000 from the Board of Finance contingency to the Registrar of Voters, seasonal and temporary workers. This is really just centered around the primaries and early voting that took place this past year. This is one that probably should have been done earlier in the year because we had it on our books for so long, but
Why is the primary a surprise?
I think we budget for, I think it's kind of tradition that we don't budget for more than one primary, and I believe there were 2 primaries this year. And so that extra one is kind of just an extra cost.
But shouldn't that be known well in advance? I guess is what I'm getting at. It's not like you can just call a primary. It's,
I think it's just the way we do it. I think the registrars would agree with
2
you,
months.
but for some reason.
yeah, that's what I'm
just the way
saying.
we
It
do
doesn't
it.
make sense. If there's going to be, I would think the time we're passing the budget, we'd know how many elections are going to be in the next fiscal year. Whether it's going to be 1 primary, 2 primaries, a general, et cetera,
Well,
and we
actually-
should budget accordingly.
It does say this here that they had no way of knowing there would be a primary in August.
I know, but that's what I'm confused. How can you not know if there's,
I don't remember why, but I think it was a surprise. Wasn't it?
I think it was
How can a primary be
it
a
was the
surprise?
Republican presidential.
That's what
I think
it
it wasn't.
The candidate can primary, in 1997, there was primary both for Board of Finance and Board of Selectmen. It came up after the candidates were chosen, and the challengers went out and filed papers, and it was about 2 months before the primary. I believe the primary was in August.
But we didn't have any primaries in the local elections.
No,
No,
we
no,
didn't.
no, this
No,
wasn't
no.
local, this
This
was
was
the national,
presidential.
this is the
This is-
presidential election.
But presidential primaries are known way in advance.
But I don't think most
I don't
states
think
were
so.
having a Republican. I think it was,
Maybe that's it.
That
They said
was
they
the
weren't
Re- it was
expecting.
Nikki
it was
challenging
the
whatever,
Republican
I
one.
think normally
and,
just.
yeah.
Okay,
die
all
out.
right, okay.
Guys, I'm keeping a list of notes of things that we're going to make sure we address in connection with
It seems like
this
we
year's
should budget for a Democrat and a Republican one, and then we get the money back if one of the parties decides not to have the primary. Normally, there's a primary, right, in
Right.
presidential election.
I think I don't disagree. I think there could be an argument to keeping it in the Board of Finance contingency and then just doling it out this way instead of clawing it back from the registrar.
I guess. I would think Board of Finance contingency for unexpected stuff, not expected stuff that didn't happen.
Right.
It gets back to, I think, the policy question of, do we want to tax people for something that may happen?
Right.
Or,
Yeah, but okay, yeah, so we can,
yeah, but we'll dig deeper into this as it comes up. But I do think specifically on the Board of Finance, like, we're moving 35,000 out of the Board of Finance contingency. And when I get to the next one, we're moving stuff back into it.
We are, yeah.
So that's why I think I'd like to see, even for these transfers, a totality of everything that came out of each
Sure.
line item and what went into all the line items, so we can see it grouped
Sure.
as a total, because,
Yeah, I mean, I think it would probably be a good idea to, at the end of the year, on the kind of year-end look, take a look at the contingency account just and see what the kind of ins and outs were and where that kind of shifted around to. And as you kind of spoiled, the next transfer is pulling $98,636 from the paramedic services line into the Board of Finance contingency line. So there were some significant savings on this paramedic services line, mainly due to the increases in collections that were remitted by Stanford EMS, and just the payments that were received due to their billing of, I think, commercial insurances and how that upticked in this fiscal year. And so the way that we pay them is almost as a net of those collections, and so our need to pay them was less than that, so we kind of have this savings. That gets transferred back into the contingency to fund some of these other ones that we had needs for. I believe there's another one of those, actually. The following transfer is a transfer totaling $290,864 to 4 lines: the accrued leave redemption line, the defined contribution employer side, Social Security, and the remaining $210,638 going back into the Board of Finance contingency. So those lines are all kind of over for a variety of reasons. The accrued leave redemption line had a higher than budgeted payout for the year, or I guess payouts plural for the year. The defined contribution employer line, there was a mid-year union contract negotiations that took place, and that kind of changed the match, I believe, from 5% to 7% on some of the employees in town hall. And so that requires a bit more funding there. And the Social Security line, I believe that was mainly just due to paring it back too far during the budget process, and this is kind of just covering that shortfall. The remaining $290,000 or so that's being transferred from the medical insurance line is due to a number of factors. Kind of as you heard from Andrew. There have been just several vacancies that have been throughout PD and town hall. And because of that, there's just less people on our medical insurance.
And we already approved this one, right?
No,
This is different.
13?
This is 12.
this is.
Oh, sorry,
12.
okay.
And so this is kind of pulling that money back into the Board of Finance contingency.
Yeah, so just not to belabor this, but Jim's point, we've had, I don't know how many references to the Board of Finance contingency, and I don't see a summary.
Sure.
Started at X, we've taken Y from it, but we've added Z to it, so now
Sure.
it's at whatever. And in the financial report, normally, our normal monthly financial
There
report, you
is,
see it there,
yeah.
but this financial report
So this is
doesn't
kind
have it.
right. This is kind of just a. I don't think it actually does contain it now. This is kind of just the preliminary annual kind of review.
Yeah.
But in the full annual review, they'll have those same parts that will. I guess it does show the ins and outs of the BOF
So next month,
contingency.
when we do see our normal financial report and has all these, the Board of Finance contingency in it, it would be good to see where it started before these
Sure.
transfers.
Yeah, but-
And then the pluses and minuses and where we landed.
Do you wanna-
Because what I want to make sure of is that we don't have too small a Board of Finance contingency
Sure.
heading into this fiscal year or too large of one,
Sure.
right? Both of-
Yeah, we,
Yeah,
plus,
So all of these are fiscal 25.
No,
So it's-
agreed,
So
but-
currently, we're tracking 26. We need
Yeah.
to go back and see all of these added up, I
Sure.
think.
but I think to Dan's point, I want to see a jump off point too, right? So
Yeah.
you're going to end at 6/30/25 with a number. It's going to be X. It's kind of what he was saying, a little we had a number, we had all these transfers, you're going to have a number. That's our jump off point going on 7/1 for 2025 for 26, right? That's our jump off point. So I think it'd be nice to see it. And I
'Cause
jumped
we
ahead
don't-
while we're kind of discussing it.
We just have it on the page.
I'd like to kind of go back to see on the full financials, all like bond proceeds, where we are with Great Island. I know I'm jumping ahead, but I figure since we're having this conversation, what we want to see, I'd like to try to go back to the September one, just to, I guess I'll call it full presentation mode, if you want to call it that, right? All the bond proceeds,
Sure.
where we are with them. Great Island's always a huge point of interest for I think for this team, you know, and where we are. Trying to think what else is in there. And I appreciate the financial report, like the one in the back. Can we kind of go back to the,
Sure. No, this wasn't
The
like
landscape
a
one?
replacement of that.
okay,
Of course.
yeah, I think it's, and I appreciate, if you did this, I think you tried to put all the revenues in one spot, which I think is the first time we're seeing this. If you guys, I apologize. for
No,
jumping
this is
ahead.
just from last year. This is
I
just a
don't remember seeing it ever with like property tax all the way down to licenses fees, like
Right,
all
right.
in one section, if you want to call it that, and then all the expenses down. It's almost your classic income statement,
So
right? You got all your revs,
So
you got all
last
your income
last
statements.
year, this was produced in August, and then once
Yeah.
again in October.
Okay.
And I would assume it's because the audit's wrapped up by that point mostly, or at least the numbers are pretty much mostly final, and that's probably why it's going through that one more time with like a full thing.
Okay.
I don't know how much of an appetite you have for looking at FY '26 yet. I don't know if you want to wait for a quarter to go through, or at least until through the end of August or so.
Yeah, I'll leave that to my colleagues here, what they want to see. You guys tell me if you want to see July already or August, or in the September meeting.
Well, keep in mind, like,
Yeah.
whatever balance we have in the contingency account as of June 30th, that vanishes and kind of goes back, and then we start with different
we start-
dollars,
yeah.
different dollars for.
Well, one addition I would say is kind of when you're looking at the ins and outs of the BOF contingency, you almost only want to look at the outs, because, you know, the surplus is like the medical insurance that we're putting back in isn't a kind of expected or budgeted amount. It's not an amount that might be there next year, so we might want to be cautious in reducing the BOF contingency too much.
Yeah.
Just because if anything, we're looking at the BOF contingency, I don't know if it starts at 200,000 or 300,000 for the year. But if we're needing to put into it at this point, it's meant we've already drawn down beyond that.
So I think in prior years, what we did is we depleted surpluses in all operating accounts to fill all deficits in operating accounts. And then only after all operating surpluses were used up and we had a net deficit, the last fund, or last line item to be drawn on was always the Board of Finance contingency.
So from my understanding, the way that it's trying to be kept is, like, for instance, around the Darien Fire Department, with that, it's kind of like a small overage, 28,000 or so. Instead of pulling from DPW, which may have an overage in another account, or kind of just an unrelated account, keeping it cleaner by just taking it from a contingency line.
Then we're putting stuff back in the contingency. If we're taking stuff out of emergency service or out of paramedic services and putting it in the contingency, then taking out of contingency and putting it in fire
It's true.
department,
It's
the
six,
same
it's
as
6
going
of
in
one.
between.
It's the same, except that when you look at the contingency, then you can see how wrong you were. And if you transfer just within, you
You
have to
lose
look
a
at
lot.
all
Yeah.
of.
Yeah, that's right.
And if
Yeah,
you're,
it's a cleaner way of looking
if
at
you're
it.
looking
Yeah.
back and trying to
I actually
understand
like
like
it.
why you did a transfer, and you see, well, why did I transfer 25,000 from, you know, voter registrars into land use? You'd have no reason, no idea why, really. Yeah, I don't think it's uncommon to kind of flow everything into contingency and then out of contingency, even if it does muddy the water a little bit, but it does show all of the kind of, you know, debits to the, or whatever budget coming out of the BOF to be what the real shortfall was in the accounts. Okay, so on to, skipping over Andrew, on to a 21,977 transfer. That is in the P and Z department. 13,050 is coming from the contingency line. And these are going to the consulting services. Just due to the increased number of plan reviews that have been taking place in the P and Z department, they have consulting services that kind of look at some of the cases that they have, and that has, you know, caused this account to go over by about 22,000 or so. There are revenues that do help offset some of these. I don't think it's necessarily a one-to-one, but it does show up on the P and Z. I believe it's application fees. On to the Norotan Heights Fire Department. This is $10,096 coming from a few accounts: professional services, heating, fuel, telecom, and snow removal, going to the facility repair and maintenance and the electricity line. It's kind of unanticipated expenses of repairing their fire alarm system, and they had a larger than anticipated snow removal bill. I believe there was some interruption in their kind of normal snow removal services that they had to kind of contract out a replacement kind of last minute.
So why is it coming from snow removal services?
Oh, wait. Oh. Well, that shouldn't be the case, then.
I don't know.
That one I'll have to look at. I think we can probably then remove the 2849 until that's sorted, and do a transfer of the 7247 into the facility repair and maintenance to cover the fire alarm system, and then sort out why the snow removal instead of the electricity. It's possible that those two account names were just reversed, but I just want to make sure before putting any money in between any of them.
Should we wait to pass all these? Like, do these need to be done today, or should we?
I'd rather not wait on this one. I would rather do the partial 7,200 of it, because the rest of it can be covered in administrative transfers. Just because this is, you know, it would be not a bad idea to wrap up transfers and the budget going into some of the audit preparation.
So when do you need to provide all the final year-end numbers to the auditors?
Well, final is a good question. A lot of the work that's got to be ready for them is September 15th. September 10th is some of the items. And I believe that's kind of the week that they're coming by and starting some of the.
And our next meeting is the 16th, right?
It is indeed. So I would suggest amending this transfer to be $7,247 of a transfer into the facility repair and maintenance. And as much coming from the lines listed above. That would be my suggestion. The next transfer is within the building department. This is $4,237 being moved from Board of Finance contingency to both the overtime and standby salary lines. This was due to the Town Hall Union contract negotiation that got settled, and they were kind of unbudgeted salary lines. I don't think the standby line actually had existed until the contract was negotiated, and so that shortfall of $3360 within that line is there. Number 17, so the final one is a transfer of $25,000 from the full-time salary line into the seasonal and temporary salary line within Parks and Recreation. I believe this is in the Youth Commission's Youth Services Department. This was due to a vacancy left as a full-time salary as the youth director. That was in the full-time salary line, and a youth coordinator was hired kind of to conduct the summer camp programming for FY25 season. And so this is kind of just shifting that money into the seasonal and temporary salary line.
So that even number, 25,000, was that what we had actually appropriated for that individual?
It may be what was actually appropriated for that one. I think it's kind of a one-time position for this year until they kind of take a look at the organization down in the Youth Commission or Youth Services Department, and then determine kind of how that hierarchy is going to be.
I thought in
forward.
this year's budget, I thought they recut that. They took one full-time position, changed it, and moved it to a.
Is that,
That was in the,
that's in seniors?
Mather. That's the
Yeah,
Mather
that's in
Center.
Senior Matter Center?
Yeah, this one was the one, this is a full-time position.
Yeah.
Did we skip 16 to 4237?
No, we did that.
I don't know how we got to 17, we should have 18, right?
Well, 18 we already did.
No, but in total, or you're just saying number 17, I see, okay.
So the only modifications that we're recommending is in transfer number 15. And it would go from transferring 10096 to transferring 6279.
7247.
We're removing the snow removal.
Removing the, well, I would be removing the electricity as the 2 line and keeping the facility repair and maintenance transfer. And that's 7247.
Instead of 10096,
10096.
But what are we moving it?
7297.
7247.
Okay.
And I'll adjust the,
So if you're just removing the 2849,
correct.
but then what are we taking the 2849 out of?
Well, I'll adjust the snow removal
Down by 28.
down by the 2849. Or let's just say I'll reduce the 82014 accounts by that amount, just in case that number, the title is switched with electricity, just to be certain.
Okay, so you're removing the 2 in the electricity, right? And you're taking it all out of snow removal or
The line item.
the line item snow removal, right?
So I'm going to take 7247 from 82007, 83005, 82050, and whatever remainder is needed, which will be about 1,000 from 82014.
So it's $968.
Yep.
So we're amending this one such that the last line item, we're going to replace the 3817 with 968. And in the 2, we're going to completely eliminate the
Yep.
second line item. So that's correct, right? We're eliminating 2849?
Yeah.
So therefore,
Sweet.
the total of those 2 different rows will now read 6279?
7247. It should be
Yeah,
7247.
7247.
Yeah.
Okay. Everyone clear on that?
Yes.
Okay. So I'll accept a single motion for 1 through 12, 1 through 18 excluding 13 and 18 since we already voted on that, with number 15 as we just discussed amended. Dan moves. Rob seconds. All those in favor? Okay.
All right. So in front of you, you have a kind of preliminary year-end look, year-end summary for the general fund operations, FY25. The front is kind of a very brief look at where things were, I would say, 2 weeks ago. And the later pages are kind of a more detailed look. So this is really kind of just some of the highlights. So on the revenue side of things, we came out 2.4 right now. It says 2.3, but as of today, it's about 2.4 million to the good on the revenue side, as long as you're pulling the contribution from fund balance out of that equation. That, of course, was 3 million for capital projects next year, as well as there was an appropriation mid-year for 89,000 and change. On the expenditure side of things, we are coming in, that number is 2.1 million, but as of right now, we're about 1.98 million to the good. And that number, I believe, all of those kind of net out to currently, it says 1.39, but right now it's 1.29 million to the good this year. So that's always a good thing. So kind of taking a look at some of the highlights from the revenue side of things, kind of as we've been seeing, interest income was 975,000 over what was budgeted. That's 4.2 million of the 3.3 million. I'd point out because I'd be remiss not to, that New Canaan, a very similar town for FY '25, had 2.1 million for interest income. So I think it kind of speaks to, the tireless efforts of our treasurer.
Also, Trumbull had 3.1.
And that's a bit bigger of a town, I believe.
15% larger.
Tax collections, we know we're at about 99.8% of collections, and that came out about 892,000 over what was budgeted. Interest and liens also on those came out about 100,000 over. Building permits we had saw coming short, are ending around 526,000 under what was budgeted, and we know that's mainly due to kind of the timing of those redevelopment projects. Fire marshal revenue came in about 100,000, 120,000 over what was budgeted. The intergovernmental revenue was about 100,000 under what was budgeted because of the MSRA we didn't get this year was making up the majority of that. Tipping fees, kind of as was spoken about before, came over budget by 374,000. Parks and Rec actually came in the general fund side of things, 45,000 under what was budgeted, but within the Parks and Rec fund came in, I think it was a bit over that 50,000 to the good. Miscellaneous revenue picking up about 13,000 or so. The story on the expenditure side kind of just speaks to the transfers that we've discussed today. The salaries due to vacancies, this is salaries kind of as a whole, has seen a favorable about 770,000. The Board of Ed, this number, the 777, is not including about 187 in encumbrances. That's now been taken out of that number. So right now it's about 590,000. Legal and overtime, as we've done with transfers, and medical insurance as well, 290. MSW, the 220, and heating fuel, as is kind of as an aggregate, is 35,000 to the good, and the accrued leave that we did a transfer for. If you would like some of the detail, the following pages kind of break down by, I guess we refer to it as character, general government, community environment, land use, and so on. I don't know if you want to go kind of department by department, but it's just kind of a look into those.
A couple of questions. So town clerk was up over 468. So that was a pretty good
Town clerk revenue?
Town clerk?
Town clerk revenue?
Licenses and permits?
Yeah, sure.
So, couple of ones that, maybe I'm just forgetting some of these. Telecommunication property tax? What is that? Unless I don't remember what that is.
We've never seen it
Like,
before.
we budgeted 50 and it came out to 200?
So that
Right,
is
right.
likely a grant that was, I know the name of the grant, but I can't remember offhand.
And maybe it's just, it's called.
It's
you
the
labeled something
naming
different.
convention that's used
Okay.
here. It's it may be the payment in lieu of taxes.
Well, the other thing I could think of possibly this is when a telecommunications company pays us for the towers they put on our property. So like if you go near the dump, there's that massive tower
Yeah.
that has all those
Yeah.
satellite/speakers on it, whatever, looks like speakers, but it's not. I'm assuming that might be what they're paying us for here. Because I don't think we charge like people property tax, but I think that's what that is.
It may be recouping those lost property taxes from the state by those telecommunications that take place of property, but I'd have to look into
Yeah,
it.
if you could just find out.
Yeah.
And the other one that, to our benefit, is interest and liens. So we know what liens is. Which interest is this?
I think these are interests on outstanding property taxes.
Oh, so when we charge and we collect it.
Yeah.
So, Josh, when I look back on when we did the budget here, it looks like we were assuming that we were going to have between the Board of Ed and the town, $1.5 million
As a net,
savings.
as a net
with
saving.
lower expenditures.
Oh, okay, sure,
And then we were going to have $1.6 million higher revenues.
okay.
So 3-1 total.
So 3.1 total, which fits in with the special appropriation of 3 million, I think, that we made from the general fund.
Yep.
So what I'm trying to understand here is,
Are we 1.3 million more than we actually thought we were gonna be? You took my question. Because I look at it the same way. Revenues are up 2.4 more than we thought. Expenditures are 2.1 less than we thought, right? So you look at that, that's call it 4 or 5, right? We took 3,089,000 out of the general fund to plug it, basically, put it into the budget for next year, but we actually turned out to be almost 1.4 million, even more than the 3.1.
Yeah, but
That's the way I'm looking at it, unless I'm wrong.
see, the $3 million special appropriation, when we say we sort of contributed it to that last year, is really what we did. We took things that were going to be in fiscal '26 budget, capital items, because we only use it for capital, and we basically spent them on, I think, like June 30th. So I think what you're seeing here is the $3 million special appropriation. Was that this year's contribution from fund balance?
That's the contribution for FY '26's capital projects. It's for the
That
following
were,
year.
but that were now included, because we're looking right here at fiscal year '25.
Right, so they're included in '25. The way that they're booked here is they're booked as a contribution from fund balance on the revenue side of things that doesn't get realized, and an expenditure of the same amount as a transfer out.
But really what we're doing is we're taking projects, just to be clear, capital projects that were part of fiscal '26 budget.
Yep,
We're advancing them to June 30th of 2025 to put them into the 2025 capital budget and paying for it.
I don't know if
But
I
that's-
would word it like that, because I wouldn't say advancing, because the budgets don't become available until July 1st. So while we're transferring the money into the fund balance of RFC and RE, they're not actually available to spend until FY '26
Well,
is
okay,
underway.
then why is that 3 million in the fiscal year '25 budget?
You know, this
I
is.
think when the RTM approves it, it becomes the way we set it up is that those things are available like about 10 days later. But if you could just confirm that 3089,
It's definitely for FY '26. For FY '26's RFC and RE kind of fund balance. Now, I think what's being voted on is the usage of RFC and RE fund balance for FY '26 projects, and this is the transfer from the general fund to support that in FY '26.
if you could just check on that.
Sure.
Any other questions on the financials?
No, just one last thing, we were talking about, like, the recs, that kind of, Dan started the conversation about the Board of Finance one. Can we get the final rec on general fund? Like, there's a jump-off number on that one too, right?
On, what is it?
Just our general fund, like, we ended.
Oh, sure, where we
June-
ended at.
June 30th with 30.1 or
Sure.
27.8, whatever.
I can tell you that as of right here, at the start of FY '25, we were at 33.8 unassigned, 34.1 just as a whole. So if you're looking at the net with the 1.29 that we're accounting for now, but sure, of course, yeah.
So is the, sorry, so is the number 33?
33.8 is where we started in FY '25.
So where do we end FY '25?
Uh,
Because is it the 33 minus the 3 million we took out of it, so it makes it 30?
No, so, well, it depends if you're rolling the net of the, result of operations into here, then it's a net of Is it a net of 1.3?
It should be a net of, so your 1.5 is actually 1.3 because the 3.1 was 2.9.
Yes, sorry.
Right? So your 1.5 is 1.3, so our fund balance should have gone up by 1.3 million.
About, yes.
And that number should be
And we'll-
blah at June
Yeah,
30th.
yeah. Next month, we'll have a regular
Yeah,
financial
okay.
report.
That's fine.
And
I
we'll
just-
have the
Yeah.
general unassigned fund balance in there.
Sure.
Yeah, that's,
Yeah.
if we can have that and all the other schedules.
Sure.
And that board of, I'm with, I go back to this, I'm with Dan on this. Kind of want to know where we're, how
Sure.
much money we have in there going into 26, quote unquote, going into 26.
Yeah, we want to know exactly what the closeout of the general fund
Sure.
and the reserve fund for capital non-recurring expenditures were for fiscal '25, and a redo synopsis of all the inter-fund transfers.
Sure.
Perfect.
Okay. Next is approval of the minutes for July 15, 2025, regular meeting.
I'll move to approve.
Okay, Dan moves.
Is that the July one?
July
'Cause
15.
it says June here, unless it got,
No, it says
unless it's the
July.
old one. Okay, I got the old one. Okay, never mind.
Merlin seconds. All those in favor?
I was not here, so can I?
You can still vote if you think the event minutes
And
accurately
I
reflect
think you
the
guys did a
meeting.
fantastic job without me. How's
Okay, all
that?
those in favor?
It was short, Rob.
It's unanimous. Okay. Okay, special assignments. Anything?
HHR is moving along very nicely. First day of school tomorrow, I believe. All three schools are exactly where they thought they would be. Had a great meeting with the HHR team last week. All the principals are happy kind of where we are. They did a ton of work in the summer. So we are on time and on budget at this point. And from a contingency standpoint, we have dipped only, I think the number kind of off the top of my head is like 15% into it. So we have quite a bit of contingency left. So the next steps, and I might have talked about this the last meeting too, is that those funds are there. So now do we have kind of, I'll call it almost like a wish list, right? Is there stuff that wasn't done that either is functionally correct or functionally additional to the thing or aesthetically pleasing, as I like to call it? So that list should be coming out, but we are right on schedule. Like I said, if you went by any of the three schools in the summer, literally when the kids got out in June, they went right in and picked up a bunch of work and we did a fantastic job. I mean, I'm near homes, I go by it every day, and I'm just stunned how fast they went in 2 months, a little over 2 months. So yeah, home run so far.
From my side, I can just report that the Great Island Advisory Committee was disbanded a few weeks ago when we finalized the master plan, and that was presented to the Board of Selectmen a couple weeks ago. They accepted it, and the next steps on that, I sent you all an email, but John's going to be getting out a sort of presentation on next steps, approval processes, what it's going to look like, and it'll likely include us considering an appropriation for some planning and consultants related to, I think what we broadly referred to as like the early access improvements. So more to come on Great Island. You get more stuff in the next week or two. On the, I'm the representative for the Board of Finance on the DE negotiations. Those kicked off this week. And so we're moving through those. That's it from my side.
I just want to acknowledge a random act of kindness by one of our teachers. My wife was driving yesterday by homeschool, saw an elementary school child fall off his bicycle, but she was beaten to the kid by one of our teachers who consoled the kid, got him up and she knew him and made sure he was okay. And I won't butcher her last name, but it was Mrs. G, whoever she is, in homeschool.
It's great to hear. Any new business?
Jim, just back to, did you sit for the audit committee? Did they talk to you?
I did.
Can you I know they didn't talk to Melinda and I. Anything to report on that, or just?
Nothing to report, but they did indicate that to the extent you all want to have a conversation
Yeah.
with them, we can set that up like this week or next week. They're available.
If you took care of it, we could take it offline and what they say.
Yeah, I think it'd be good for all three of us to have, they'd like to have, I think, independent calls.
Yeah,
but
count me in.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I'm happy to do it. And one last thing on HHR, I forgot to mention this, sorry. So an open house in September, there's going to be an HHR rep at each elementary school. So there'll be a presence there if anybody has any questions about anything. So there'll be one person at each place. I forgot to say that, so.
That's great. Okay, any new business? Okay. Agenda review, I know we have a few things, Josh, we've added that we want to see for next week, or next month. But as always, if you have anything you want to say, just shoot me an email. Any other questions? I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Rob moves. Paul seconds. All those in favor? We stand adjourned.